3 million years after the apocalypse of the Curse Wars, the Malevolence King reincarnated to burn the world down. But after capturing his vessel for execution, the man who was supposed to save humanity decided to spare his life instead. Earlier that day, this ugly, disgusting, worthless loser brought flowers to give to his senile grandfather, who screamed at Yuji that he's watched him grow into a strong man, so he wished for him to use his powers to save people's lives before letting out his final breath. Seeing his lifeless body, Yuji struggled to hold back his tears before his grandpa was taken away. But as he began filling out his funeral papers, an edgelord appeared, commanding him to hand over the cursed object he had stolen. However, Yuji revealed that his friends were the ones who had it, and remembered that they were going to peel the seal off tonight. But when Fushiguro heard those words, he revealed that his friends were about to die. As they began sprinting back towards the school, a force field stopped Yuji from moving forward, so Fushiguro told him to stay back. Inside the school, the curse had began to consume one of Yuji's friends, and when another one grabbed Saki, Fushiguro rushed inside the hallway while summoning his divine dogs. Outside the building, Yuji realized that his friends were about to die, but he remembered his grandpa's final words, asking him to use his strength to save others. While Fushiguro kept charging forward, a massive curse appeared before his eyes that was grabbing Saki's disgusting body, and Yuji knew that he couldn't let his friends die. So as the curse was about to swallow her along with the finger, Yuji leaped through the window before flipping towards the curse, punching down at it, and said that he won't allow his friends to die yet. Just then, Fushiguro slashed the curse apart, and thought it was a miracle that the finger wasn't swallowed, since anyone who swallows it would gain the greatest cursed energy in the world. In that moment, a curse began to appear from above Yuji, so Fushiguro pushed him away before being crushed down. However, the massive monster launched him against the wall, before punching him with enough force to destroy the entire building. As the giant beast began running towards him, Fushiguro was unable to use his curse technique, but Yuji smashed the monster down, and after dodging its attacks, he leaped off the bridge and grabbed onto its hair to punch its eye, but it regenerated it in that instant. He was determined to follow his grandfather's words, but after the curse punched him into the air and sent the finger flying, Yuji leaped to catch it with his mouth, so the monster began attempting to swallow him. But before he would die, he realized that he had no other option if he wanted to save everyone, and swallowed the finger. As soon as he saw that happen, Fushiguro realized that Yuji would die, but there was still a 1 in a million chance of something else happening. The 1 in a million chance of Sukuna incarnating had occurred, and he realized that he was reborn in a new era, filled with innocent victims and ripe mothers that he could eat out. However, Yuji held back his face, and when Sukuna wondered how he was still able to move, he realized that Yuji was somehow suppressing him. So Fushiguro told him to stand in his place to exorcise him, but Yuji tried saying he was fine as he began overcoming Sukuna's control of his body. Just then, the sexiest hot Giga Chad Alpha in all of anime appeared, realizing that the curse really combined with Yuji's body. However, he asked him to swap out with Sukuna for 10 seconds, but when Yuji hesitated, Gojo told him not to worry, because he was the strongest. So as Sukuna regained control, he wondered why the world was smelling gayer now, and leaped towards the source, exploding the bridge in that instant. But when the dust settled, Gojo was sitting on top of him, so as Sukuna tried to slash him down, he teleported away from all of his attacks, telling him that he was going to show off in front of his student. In that instant, he flashed behind him and leveraged his momentum to send Sukuna spinning in the air, before punching him with enough power to destroy the ground with the backlash of the wind. Even so, Sukuna rushed back and launched his cursed energy to explode the building, thinking he finally erased the gay smell out of this world. However, he saw that he was unscathed, and after Gojo counted to 10 seconds, Yuji began regaining control of his body, and Sukuna wondered who was powerful enough to suppress him. Seeing his ability to control the curse, Gojo thought it was a miracle, but touched his head to knock him unconscious for execution. However, Fushiguro asked Gojo to spare his life, so Gojo promised that he'll take care of it. Back in the present, he revealed that this was why Yuji's ugly ass was getting executed. But there was one part of the story that he was still hiding. After taking one of Sukuna's fingers, he threw it to the air before forcing it towards the wall, showing him that they can't be destroyed. So he planned on feeding Yuji all 20 fingers before executing him, to wipe out Sukuna's existence from this world forever. Inside the crematorium, Yuji wondered if swallowing all fingers would save the lives of others, so when Gojo told him that it would, he asked him to show him the other finger, and after taking it away, Gojo stepped back while Yuji ate it, realizing that he has now consumed a tenth of Sukuna's power, and wondered if he could take it. In that instant, Sukuna's overwhelming energy began to take Yuji's body away. But as he kept inching closer while struggling to resist, he was able to overcome the cursed energy, and Gojo realized that he was definitely Sukuna's vessel, the first one to ever be born, and the last one to ever exist. After leaving his family's grave, Gojo told Yuji that he would be transferring to one of the Jujutsu Tech high schools, a place where he would learn to control the cursed energy he gained from Sukuna's powers. However, Sukuna's mouth popped out the side of Yuji's face, telling Gojo that he'll never be able to control his powers, and that he would become his first target after devouring Yuji's body. Hearing those words, Gojo thought it was an honor to be a target of the great Sukuna. After all, he revealed that Sukuna was the strongest sorcerer during the golden age of Jujutsu, earning him the title King of Curses. But when Yuji asked him if he would lose against Sukuna after eating all 20 fingers, Gojo told him that he'd win. After showing him his dorm, Gojo went on to introduce him to this ugly, disgusting bitch called Kyujisaki, before taking them to some abandoned shithole, saying that their mission will be to kill the curse living inside. Before leaving them, once he was gone, one of the other school officials casted a veil from the sky, concealing them from the outside world, while Fushiguro summoned his divine dogs to lead them towards the curse. But as soon as they entered inside, Fushiguro screamed at them to stop, realizing they were inside a massive innate domain, and when he turned over, he noticed that their exit was gone. However, they began going deeper into the building, and when Yuji saw the corpse of an ugly moron, he wanted to bring him outside to give him a proper burial. But Fushiguro grabbed his shirt, telling him that they can't be dragged down with a body while a curse is about to kill them. After all, he wasn't even worth saving, and revealed that he had access to all the information about the scene, saying that this person hit a little girl while drunk driving, killing her in that instant. So he asked Yuji what he would do if a person he saved kills someone else, but when Yuji asked him why he saved him then, Kyujisaki began screaming at them before getting swallowed into the ground. As Fushiguro wondered why his dogs didn't sense what happened, he told Yuji that they needed to run and find Kyujisaki later, but before they could move, the curse appeared before them. It was a special grade curse, the highest level of all curses, but as Yuji tried slashing at it, his hand was ripped off. At the same time, Kyujisaki wondered where she was taken to, and thousands of faces began surrounding her. With his arm cut off, Yuji told Sukuna that they would die together, so he needed to help him fight this beast. But Sukuna revealed that he still had 18 other fragments of his soul, and even if they switched, he would kill his edgelord friend faster than the cursed spirit, and would go on to have fun with Kyujisaki before killing her as well. Just then, the demon unleashed a wave of pure cursed energy, and began laughing at their worthless faces. So Yuji screamed at Fushiguro to take Kyujisaki out of here, allowing him to switch out with Sukuna to save them. A few minutes later, he was running down the hallway and summoned his divine dogs to find Kyujisaki, but she was already on her last nail, and realized that she was about to get killed. At the same time, the spirit took his pants off and was about to clap Yuji, but before he could react, the spirit launched an energy barrier to smash him against the wall, and rushed back to pulverize him, causing him to land on a bridge after losing consciousness. But as soon as he woke up, the spirit released a beam of cursed energy towards Yuji, with enough heat to burn his fingers off. However, he wondered why he got himself in this situation, and began wishing that he didn't even eat the finger, but screamed at himself to stop, realizing that he didn't want to run or die, but his body was completely blown away. Inside the lower level, Kyujisaki realized that she was on a trip this entire time. But as the mushroom was about to eat her out, a tongue licked her body and swallowed her. She wished she didn't enjoy Fushiguro's tongue as much as she did. But at the same time, the cursed spirit was about to kill Yuji, and he realized that he was weaker than he ever imagined, and began crying that he didn't want to die. However, he realized this was the life he chose, and wanted to save the people he cared about. So with all of his anger channeled, he began to activate Black Flash, and started rushing towards the demon, nearly releasing the strongest attack in the Jujutsu world, but was blocked before he could connect. Just then, he heard the howling of Fushiguro's wolf, and realized they made it outside, so he let Sukuna take over. The curse realized he was screwed, but Sukuna wanted to make him regret summoning him, so he realized that he should team up with the curse to kill his friends, and asked it to follow him outside. But as he kept walking, the curse tried to blast him away, so Sukuna raised Yuji's arm to block it, but regretted that he accidentally regenerated it for him. When the curse realized how powerful he was, Sukuna flashed towards him and crushed his head onto the ground, telling him to try again, before crushing his head and destroying the bridge. As they were falling down, the curse tried throwing him away, but Sukuna had ripped off its arm and began laughing at it, causing him to collapse into the water plant. Outside the building, Fushiguro gave Kujisaki's unconscious body to the school official and asked them to bring Gojo back, although he knew he was probably too far away by now. Downstairs, Sukuna wondered how they were both considered special grade curses, especially with the difference in their power levels, but the demon tried to regenerate all of his limbs and leaped down to fight against him. However, Sukuna thought it was a shame that it had no idea what a curse was capable of, and decided to show him the true essence of jujitsu sorcery. In that instant, the demon was cut into 17 different pieces, but Sukuna realized one of his fingers was inside before taking it, burning the curse out of existence. So he called out for Yuji to switch, but after not responding, he told him to quit blue balling him already, and after he didn't respond once again, he smiled, realizing what he could do. Outside the building, as Fushiguro sensed that the cursed monster was dead, he began wondering where Yuji was hiding. But at that instant, Sukuna appeared behind him, telling him that Yuji was gone forever. As he ripped his shirt apart, he dug his hand deep into his chest and pulled out his heart. He told Fushiguro that he was taking Yuji hostage, since Yuji couldn't live without his heart, so he threw it away. But as he consumed the cursed finger, he told Fushiguro that he now had more than enough time to eliminate him. Just then, Fushiguro noticed that Yuji's hand had been restored, and realized that Sukuna has the ability to use reverse curse technique to heal himself. As he thought he could force him to regenerate a new heart, Fushiguro readied himself for battle, and summoned his cursed bird. Immediately, he charged at Sukuna and began trying to land a single attack, but Sukuna dodged every single one of them with ease. As Fushiguro continued trying to close the distance, Sukuna wondered if he was even trying, so as he caught his hand, he told him to try harder with more cursed energy, and smacked his useless mouth. As Fushiguro managed to maintain his balance, he summoned Orochi out of the ground to capture Sukuna. At Fushiguro's command, the cursed animals began attacking at the same time, but Sukuna obliterated the serpent, and appeared behind Fushiguro before his brain could even process the attack. As Sukuna hurled him far away, he leapt into the air to chase after him, kicking him with enough force to send him crashing into the buildings. However, Fushiguro's bird tried to rescue him, but Sukuna flashed from behind, punching him as his spine crushed with all the walls breaking down. But his bird managed to rescue him. However, Sukuna leapt into the air and knocked them into another building, sending him crashing down. As Sukuna landed before them, Fushiguro realized there was no way out of this situation, so he made his bird vanish in his final moments. When Sukuna began wondering why he was trying to help Yuji regain control of his body, Fushiguro remembered the only girl he ever cared about, and how she lost her life because of the curses. So he stood up and began converting his life into cursed energy, shocking Sukuna because of his hidden powers, and making him beg for Fushiguro to show him what he's hiding. But as Fushiguro was about to activate his sacred treasure, he decided to dissipate his powers, reminding Yuji that he never had a reason to save him, other than for his selfish reason of wanting him to stay alive. He said that he wasn't a hero, so he's never regretted saving his friend, and those words triggered Yuji's consciousness, allowing him to suppress Sukuna's soul. However, his missing heart began draining all of his blood out, and as he passed out on the ground, he begged Fushiguro to live a long life without him. The following morning, three dumbass curses wondered why they had to sacrifice Sukuna's finger to test its powers, but Geto told them that it was necessary since they learned what he was capable of. A few days later, as Yuji's body was laid inside the morgue, Ijichi started apologizing for causing his death, but Gojo thought it was a trap from the Jujutsu elders and told him to shut his disgusting mouth. From the very start, the higher-ups have considered Yuji a threat, and Gojo thought they made up the plan to abandon his team while he was away. Just then, a lady entered the room, wondering why Gojo was concerned about Yuji, seeing as he was already dead. As he began saying that Yuji was a special student, Larry told him that she would dismember him into pieces for her experiments. Meanwhile, Kujisaki tried comforting Fushiguro, telling him that they only knew Yuji for 2 weeks, but she was barely holding back her own tears. However, when a useless senior appeared before them, wondering why they looked like they were at a funeral, they merely ignored her useless face. From behind, a fucking talking panda tried telling Maki that one of their friends died yesterday, but one of them kept only saying he wanted a rice ball. Eventually, they revealed that they were here to invite Fushiguro and Kujisaki to a school exchange event, and Panda told them that it was a fighting contest between the two greatest jujitsu schools in their world. At the same time, Geto revealed that there were two conditions for winning the Curse War, and the first one was to immobilize the strongest jujitsu sorcerer in the world, Satoru Gojo. The second was to get the King of Curses on their side, but Jogo thought Yuji was already dead, so that would be impossible. However, Geto wondered if he was truly dead, and inside of Sukuna's innate domain, Yuji's soul swore that he would eliminate Sukuna. As he grabbed a rotten horn, he threw it at Sukuna, but he jumped away unscathed. Desperate for payback, Yuji ran at him and began throwing a flurry of punches, but Sukuna punched his fist to the ground. When Yuji tried to go for his legs, Sukuna flashed behind him and kicked him into the water. While Yuji was wondering how he managed to evade all of his attacks, Sukuna landed on top of him and sat on his body, telling him that they were actually inside his mind. He told Yuji that he was still alive and promised to resurrect him if he agrees with his conditions, since something changed during his battle with Fushiguro. For his conditions, he told him that as soon as he said the word enchant, he would take over his body for a minute, and added that he would make him forget this agreement. Yuji thought his useless face was up to no good, and told him to shove his agreement up his ass. However, Sukuna promised that he wouldn't kill or hurt anyone during that minute, and told him that their agreement could not be broken once they sign a pact. Having no other choice, Yuji decided to accept, but as Sukuna stood up from his body, Yuji punched his useless face away, saying that he would never accept his conditions. Just then, Sukuna suggested they fight till the death, saying that the victor could decide the conditions. Meanwhile, Larry was ready to begin dismembering Yuji, but as Yuji woke up, he began wondering why they abandoned him without any plot armor. However, Gojo was glad to see him resurrected, and welcomed him back to life. So as Gojo saw Larry off that day, he asked her to keep Yuji's resurrection a secret, saying that he wishes to train him before the higher-ups try to kill him again. Inside a restaurant, he began telling him that Gojo was their worst enemy, and suggested that they exorcise him in a prison realm. The thought made Jogo excited, and the little volcano on his head began oozing with hot lava, spreading terrible heat around the restaurant. Just then, the waiter appeared before Geto, wondering why he hasn't placed an order, but he burst into flame at that instant. At the same time, Jogo started burning every person inside the restaurant, turning the place into a fucking horror house. But as the useless waiter tried to escape, she fell down on her face. So when Jogo agreed to eliminate Gojo, he burned her worthless body into a pile of ash. Inside a private building, Gojo began telling Yuji that he would train him in using cursed energy for close combat. However, when he asked if Yuji could use cursed energy in physical combat, Yuji remembered that he managed to do so during his battle with the special grade monster. With Gojo hoping to see for himself, he told Yuji to punch him with cursed energy, but as he threw a punch without any power, he realized that Yuji had no control over his emotions. So in hopes of training him how to exercise his cursed energy, Gojo revealed a bunch of plot development moves, and showed him a cursed doll that would punch his ugly ass once he starts losing his emotions. A few hours later, as Gojo was ready to leave, he asked Yuji if he agreed on a contract with Sukuna before getting restored to life, but Yuji's memories had already been erased, so he told him that he could not remember anything. That night, while returning to the jujitsu school, Gojo sensed the presence of a cursed demon, and decided to exit the car. Just as Ajichi drove away, Jogo landed before him, but Gojo wondered who the fuck he was. Without hesitating, Jogo summoned a volcano behind him, and it unleashed a mighty blast at that instant, nearly burning half of the forest. When it was over, Jogo began thinking that Gojo has been annihilated, and thought it was the easiest battle in the world. But as the smoke cleared, Gojo emerged from the blast without a single scratch. As Gojo prepared for the battle, Jogo summoned ember insects, and commanded them to attack him. But as he stopped them with a barrier, the collision wrecked the road behind him. Just then, the insects started making weird noises, and blew up into a mighty flame. However, as Gojo remained unscathed, Jogo ran at him, and burned his head with fire, before hitting him with a powerful cursed energy that blew up the entire place. Impressed with his own power, Jogo thought Gojo was dead for sure, but as he began to leave, he discovered that Gojo was still alive, and Gojo wondered how a special grade could be so weak. When Jogo wondered how the f he managed to survive, Gojo revealed that he never made contact with him, but that he only managed to touch the infinity between them, and wanted to show him what he meant. He began telling him to grab his hand, and as Jogo tried, he realized that it was impossible to get closer to him. But Gojo told him that he was actually being infinitely slowed down by his barrier. However, he wanted to hold his hands, and told him not to be shy since it's making him embarrassed as well. But Jogo realized he was absolutely fucked, and Gojo punched him deep in his core. As he coughed up cursed liquid, Jogo discovered it couldn't even penetrate the barrier, but Gojo smacked him with massive blows, and kicked him away. He told him that infinity exists everywhere, but his technique brings it into reality. It was convergence and divergence, asking him what he thinks would happen if he touched the void. He activated his curse technique reversal, red, and at that instant, the red light exploded into a massive wave of energy that destroyed the forest, sending Jogo stumbling past the trees for miles. But as he tried to escape, Gojo knocked him back with a massive strike, and followed with another punch, dragging his worthless face across the ground. As Jogo returned to unleash cursed energy, Gojo appeared behind him and kicked him towards the lake, sending him crashing inside. While he was laying down, Gojo realized this was the perfect time, and when he woke up, he noticed that Gojo had appeared with Yuji, because after he teleported to Yuji's private building, Gojo had discovered that Yuji was already starting to put his emotions under control, so he told him that he intends to teach him the true pinnacle of jujitsu battles, domain expansion. Just then, Yuji realized they were standing on water, but Jogo thought that Gojo was a moron for bringing in someone who would slow him down.
大丈夫でしょ。だって君弱いもん。
After being clapped by the fruitiest voice in all of anime, Jogo began unleashing his volcanic energy, and went on to activate his domain expansion, Coffin of the Iron Mountain. This was the essence of jujitsu battles, an innate domain constructed with cursed energy, the ultimate move that boosts the user's stats and guarantees the strike to always land. However, when he discovered that Gojo was unscathed, he realized he was really in deep shit. The most effective way to destroy a domain was to expand one's own domain, Gojo said, allowing the more refined one to dominate the space. In that instant, Jogo decided to unleash all of his flames to burn Gojo to ashes. In that moment, he destroyed the domain, and with only Jogo's head surviving, Gojo demanded to know who his allies were. Meanwhile, two other enemies were watching them from the mountains, and realized that Jogo could not escape on his own. However, as Geto began to leave, Hanami told him that he would rescue Jogo, and vanished instantly. Back in the forest, Gojo was trying to persuade Jogo to confess his secret plans, but a mysterious flower landed before him. Immediately, it cast beautiful flowers around them, enchanting their minds at that instant. However, as Gojo snapped out of it, a ridiculously long twig raised Yuji towards the sky, allowing Hanami to escape with Jogo's head. But when a tree monster appeared to devour Yuji, Gojo slashed the spikes and burned it instantly. With the enemies gone, Gojo wondered how Hanami managed to sneak up on them, and thought his power was impressive. So he began telling Yuji that he would become his personal trainer, revealing that he intends to make him stronger within a few weeks, so that he would send him off to the exchange event. At the same time, in an alternate dimension, Hanami brought Jogo back, and a mysterious man was glad they had survived. However, Geto hoped they understood why they needed to seal Gojo, and said their ultimate plan would go into effect on October 31st in Shibuya, wondering if Mahito was okay with the plan. In the far side of the city, a weak lonely loser was being bullied by a group of seniors. His name was Yoshino, and they accused him of trying to develop plot with their crush. When Yoshino tried saying that he's never seen her before in his life, the useless girl told them that he's been spying on her inside the showers, so a bully kicked him. A few days later, while Yoshino was inside the theater, he noticed the bullies as they began making plans to develop plot with the useless girl. The sight of their worthless faces made him angry, and he wondered why they wouldn't shut their disgusting mouths. Just then, Mahito appeared inside the theater and turned their faces into haunting corpses. But after Mahito left, Yoshino followed him into an alley, remembering all the bullying he endured throughout his life, and begged him to gain the same ability. The following day, when Yuji and Gojo's friend arrived at the scene, Nanami wondered if he could see the traces of cursed energy around the theater. Yuji decided to concentrate on the cursed energy, and soon noticed the footsteps of a cursed monster. But Nanami thought he was useless for not sensing it sooner, and wondered why Gojo sent Yuji along with him. After they arrived outside the theater, they noticed a cursed monster lurking in the darkness, so Nanami revealed that he would eliminate it, but told Yuji to slay the second monster that was hiding in the corner. As Yuji readied himself to face it, Nanami revealed his cursed weapon, and began explaining his cursed technique to him. At the same time, Yuji started dodging the cursed monster, but as they locked hands, Nanami's words managed to distract him, allowing the monster to push him off to a target and scoring a home run. Just then, Nanami drew cursed energy around his weapon, but as the cursed monster charged at him, he noticed its weak spot and sliced its body in an instant. As Yuji wondered how Nanami cut it with his dull knife, his own monster knocked him across to the other side. But having had enough, Yuji decided to summon cursed energy into his fists. But as he punched the monster, the energy blew it open, and Nanami realized that Yuji was hiding a secret ability. As Nanami was ready to kill the monster, he noticed its watch and realized that the cursed monsters were human after all. By the following day, Larry had studied the bodies and began telling Nanami that the monsters were humans, but that their bodies had been altered by a cursed technique. She thought the jujitsu user who turned them was a special grade, and warned Yuji to be careful. Meanwhile, Mahito was resting in the sewers and began explaining the process of creating cursed spirits. When Yoshino wondered how he was formed, Mahito told him that he was born from the hatred and fear inside of humans, and revealed that his power comes from his soul. The next day, as Nanami revealed a photograph of Yoshino, he told Yuji that he was the only surviving witness in the theater, and thought he knows the monster that killed the boys. So he told Yuji to find him, hoping the kid would lead them to the cursed monster. Later that day, after arriving inside Yoshino's neighborhood, they spotted him heading towards a store, and decided to follow him. At the same time, Nanami had arrived inside the sewers, and was waiting for the enemy to appear. But as Mahito emerged from the darkness, he began saying that Nanami would make a fine lab rat for his cursed experiments. But Nanami wanted to finish his job before it's 5 o'clock, or he would have to go into overtime. As Nanami began attacking him, Mahito blocked with his cursed energy, and Nanami realized he was as strong as a special grade monster. So he followed him, and although neither of their attacks were able to land, Nanami managed to find an opening and kicked him all the way back. As Nanami noticed his weakness and tried hacking his body, Mahito shielded with his arms, but the knife sliced his wrist. Shocked by the sight, he wondered how Nanami's knife managed to break through his energy barrier, but restored his arm at that instant. As Mahito decided to reveal that his cursed technique was to change the shape of a human soul, he cast Idol Transfiguration spell, and his cursed puppet began to expand. He told Nanami that his cursed monsters were no ordinary human, but that they were actually jujitsu sorcerers who were too weak to defeat him. Meanwhile, Yoshino had finally arrived home, but discovered that an ugly fatso teacher was already waiting for him. As the man asked why he skipped school and failed to attend the bully's funerals, Yoshino grew angry at his disgusting face, and was ready to annihilate him at that moment. Luckily, Yuji appeared at that instant, and realized that Yoshino could see the cursed monster he was holding, but he smacked his head on a pole. However, he was relieved that he arrived in time, and began asking to speak with Yoshino in private. When the shitty teacher tried saying that he arrived first, but the teacher chased after him. Before long, Yuji appeared behind Yoshino and invited him for a private conversation. Meanwhile, Nanami and Mahito continued their battle, but as Nanami dodged his attacks, Mahito blocked his knife. In an instant, he released weird monsters towards him, but Nanami managed to evade them, until they eventually crashed into the wall. But as he landed on top of it, he realized the monster still has its memories and thought that Mahito was a terrible menace who shouldn't even exist. Just then, Mahito made contact with his body and released cursed energy into his soul, but he leapt back instantly. Even so, he would not surrender, but decided to summon cursed energy into his hands. So as they charged at each other, they narrowly dodged one another's attacks, but Nanami began running towards the outside. As Mahito appeared before him, he struck his knife, sending him flying back. But at that moment, Nanami realized that Mahito would not quit, so as he decided to use his tai as a new weapon. Mahito discovered that his cursed energy was increasing. Just then, Nanami said that it was now over time, and said that his technique divides the target along a line, creating a weak point at the 7-to-3 ratio point. Mahito wondered why he was explaining his technique, and as Nanami charged forward with his cursed energy, he delivered a powerful blow into the wall. But as it spread across the tunnel, the wall broke to pieces, covering each piece with cursed energy. With Mahito enchanted by the sight, he thought the skill was impressive, but before he could dodge it, Nanami slashed his knee instantly. While Mahito was still in shock, Nanami told him that he was sparing his life, but hoped that they would face off again in the future. Just as he left, the stones fell on top of Mahito, burying him under the rubble. Meanwhile, Yuji and Yoshino had found a quiet space, but Yuji realized that Ajichi had basically vanished. However, as he decided to man up, he asked Yoshino if he spotted any cursed demons around the theater on the day the bullies were killed. Yoshino told him that he saw nothing, and Yuji thought it was all he needed to hear. Before long, Yoshino's mother arrived and decided to invite him for dinner. At the same time in the sewers, Geto arrived at the rubble, and an ugly snake crawled outside, turning into Mahito. As he began saying that Nanami was a tough opponent, he told Geto that he would always survive if he continues to maintain his soul. When Geto wondered if Nanami was killed, Mahito told him that he left already. Meanwhile, Nanami was inside a restroom, trying to stop his wound from bleeding. But as he remembered the battle and realized that Mahito was just a child, he thought he was evolving faster than a human would. At Yoshino's home, they began playing a guessing game, and Yoshino was glad to have made a new friend. But that same night, after his lazy mother passed out, Yoshino decided to ask Yuji if he would willingly kill a jujitsu user that attacks him. Yuji told him that he wouldn't, and said that the value of his life would become irrelevant once he becomes a killer. Hearing these words, Yoshino thought he found a new best friend, and decided to abandon his desire for revenge. However, that same night, as his mother woke up, she noticed the cursed finger before her, but a monster appeared behind her at that moment. By the following day, after Yoshino's mother was found dead, Yuji began telling Nanami to take him around as backup. But Nanami told him that he was better off staying away, as he thought he would soon be forced to kill someone. At the same time, Yoshino was ready to avenge the death of his mother, and remembered that Mahito already told him that a bully was responsible for it. Meanwhile, inside the school, the disgusting bully was awarded a useless certificate. But a student noticed the strange portal outside and wondered what it was. Just then, Mahito cast a barrier around the entire school and revealed that every single non-jujitsu sorcerer was now trapped inside. His intention was to trap Yuji and Yoshino inside the barrier, hoping that they would battle each other and eventually force Yuji into creating a pact with Sukuna. At the same time, the students had passed out on the floor. But when Yoshino appeared before the worthless teacher and revealed his scars from being bullied, he wondered why the teacher was too afraid to stop the assault. As he approached the bully who always beat him up for his pocket money, he decided to ask if he was responsible for his mother's death. When the dude tried asking if he had lost his mind, dark spots began appearing across his body, so Yoshino punched him to the floor. As his anger continued to grow, he started kicking him in retaliation, determined to give him a taste of his own medicine. But as he raised him up into the air, ready to send him to Nirvana, Yuji appeared at that moment. Just as he noticed the unconscious students, he thought Yoshino must have killed them, and screamed at him to free the bully. As Yuji managed to chase him out of the hall, he tried attacking with his cursed fist, but Yoshino summoned his moon dregs, protecting himself from Yuji's blows. He warned him to stay out of his business, because Yuji would never understand the value of human life, and forced his moon dregs to overwhelm him in that instant. However, Yuji pulled him back as he began to leave, and as he pursued Yoshino, he began attacking his monster before retreating instantly. But he charged again, and hit the monster with a cursed blow that sent Yoshino flying outside the building. As he landed on a roof, he began wondering why Yuji was bent on stopping him. But as the image of his mother appeared in his mind, Yoshino grew very angry, and summoned claw spikes from his monster's insides. So as Yuji descended towards the roof, Yoshino thought he could end him before he lands. But as his monster attacked him, Yuji evaded its claws and knocked them with his cursed fists. He told Yoshino that his words sounded like a deranged maniac's and rushed at him again, punching his worthless body into the school. Immediately, he followed him and began wondering if his life wasn't worth anything. He told him that human life was worth something and called him a disgrace to his mother. However, Yoshino was convinced that human life was truly worthless and resummoned his moon dregs at that instant. But as he directed it to attack Yuji, he allowed the spikes to penetrate his body. The sight left Yoshino in shock, and he wondered why Yuji allowed himself to be penetrated. But as Yuji managed to approach him, he decided to apologize for his earlier words and asked to know what triggered his desire for revenge. After Yoshino revealed everything, Yuji realized he could not abandon him and asked him to enroll at his jujitsu school so that they would avenge his mother together. But at that moment, Mahito appeared before him. As Yuji wondered if he was human, Mahito restrained him with his extended arm. Right then, Yuji realized he was the same cursed spirit Nanami already warned him about, and screamed for Yoshino to run away. Thinking he could persuade Mahito to release him, Yoshino tried telling Yuji that Mahito was actually a good person. But as he let out those words, the memories of all the transfigured humans returned to his mind, and he realized that Mahito was actually a curse in disguise. However, Mahito was glad that his plans had already worked out, and told Yoshino that he was as stupid as all the bullies that kicked his ass for believing a cursed spirit. At that moment, he used his idle transfiguration technique, turning him into a cursed monster in that instant. With Yuji still in shock, the monster rushed at him, punching his ugly face, but he managed to restrain it. As the monster began punching his body, Yuji screamed for Sukuna to turn him back into a human, begging him to heal him the same way he healed his heart, and offered anything he wanted. However, Sukuna turned down his offer and realized that he had truly forgotten about their pact, so he began mocking Yuji, telling him to keep forfeiting his pride in future to rely on a cursed spirit. At the same time, Mahito wondered why Sukuna refused to create a pact since it should have been in his powers to heal Yoshino, but thought his plans were still working out perfectly. So they began laughing at Yuji's horrendous face, but as he realized they were nothing but disgusting monsters, he thought they were both useless. Just then, Yoshino managed to regain his memories, asking Yuji why this had to happen to him, but his soul left his body at that instant. As Mahito began laughing at his corpse, Yuji punched his worthless face, but as he landed, he discovered his nose was bleeding, and wondered how Yuji's punch managed to strike his soul. At that moment, Yuji's rage began growing, so he leaped to attack with his cursed energy, but none of his strikes were able to connect onto Mahito's body. However, he decided to draw cursed energy into both of his fists, determined to continue with his attacks until he destroys his body. At the same time, Mahito decided to transform his arm into a set of chains and began attacking Yuji until the walls blew up. But as Yuji flew out of the dust and landed on the ground, Mahito turned his arm into a drill and launched it right at him. Yuji dodged it and caught his extended arm, but Mahito released spikes into his hands. However, Yuji would not quit and managed to pull him out of the building, throwing him into another one in the distance. Immediately, he punched the ground, causing the place to erupt, and followed with another punch to Mahito's gut. But he launched spikes into Yuji's body. As Mahito told Yuji that he could never beat him, he decided to transfigure his body, but at that moment, he teleported into Sukuna's inner realm. When Sukuna wondered if he has lost his mind for trying to touch his soul, he vowed to annihilate his worthless face if he ever did again, and called him an insolent fool. Right then, Yuji managed to grab his head, saying that he wouldn't switch with Sukuna, and began hammering his disgusting face before following with a devastating kick. But as he tried to end him with his cursed fists, he realized that Mahito was already behind him and was ready to end his life, but Nanami repelled his attack, causing him to retreat. But as Nanami noticed his bleeding nose, Yuji told him that his punches managed to injure his body. Nanami told Yuji that his own attacks were useless, but suggested that they attack Mahito at the same time and exercise him before he could recover. Realizing he couldn't afford to lose, Mahito turned his arm into a blade and created a third eye for seeing everything. As he began running at them, he attacked Nanami and nearly sliced Yuji before jumping high into the air and transforming into a weird shape that nearly stabbed them into the ground. As they began destroying the spikes, Mahito returned to his form, but as they attacked at the same time, he managed to escape in the form of a kid. However, Nanami and Yuji already discovered his technique and realized they could definitely kill him. At the same time, Mahito thought Yuji's attacks would be lethal, so he vomited transfigured humans and commanded the monsters to attack him. But as they did, he nearly slashed Nanami's head off, realizing he couldn't kill him on his own. Meanwhile, Yuji was trying to escape from the cursed monsters, but as he jumped on a rooftop, they followed him. He grabbed one of the monsters, but it took the form of a kid, and the sight of it made Yuji afraid, but the other monsters managed to restrain him. On the other hand, Mahito had captured Nanami, but Yuji flew out of the building, stumping down on his arm. Before he knew it, Nanami appeared behind him, looking to slice his head off, but as Mahito thought he would easily dodge it, Yuji punched his disgusting face. They began attacking at the same time, barely allowing him any space to catch his breath. But as Mahito thought he was about to die, he managed to tap into his soul and cast his domain expansion, summoning huge dark hands around them and sealing Nanami inside with his self-embodiment of perfection. This was his greatest technique, and as he realized he has the upper hand, Nanami knew he was fucked. Outside the domain, Yuji began punching the shell, realizing that Nanami would not survive the attacks inside. At the same time, Nanami decided to take off his glasses, realizing his end was near. But at that moment, Yuji managed to punch a hole into the domain and jumped inside without hesitating. This was their only chance of survival, Nanami realized, because with domains like Infinite Void and Mahito's domain, a strike is guaranteed to land. But because of Yuji's forbidden soul, it was now over. In that instant, he was teleported to Sukuna's innate domain for touching his soul, and Sukuna reminded him that there wouldn't be a second chance, slicing his arteries in that instant. He went on to say that he didn't care whether everyone in the world dies, aside from the single person he cared about, and ripped apart his domain in that instant. As Yuji wondered how he got injured, he discovered he could kill him before he recovers, and began charging at him. But at the same time, Mahito thought he could kill everyone with his last bit of cursed energy, and began to expand into a large monster. But Yuji realized he could finish him off before he escapes. So he awakened his divergent fist and punched his belly, but it deflated in that instant. As Yuji wondered how he vanished, Mahito entered into the sewer, narrowly escaping Nanami's attack. But as Nanami called for backup, Yuji passed out from exhaustion. Inside the sewer, Mahito managed to crawl towards the light, and was glad that he survived the attacks. However, he knew he would return, and thought he must definitely kill Yuji next time. Meanwhile, in a hot spring, Jogo had successfully regrown his body, but as Mahito appeared, he decided to jump into the spring, hoping to recover from his own wounds. As he decided to reveal their plan, he said that they must feed the rest of Sukuna's fingers to Yuji, hoping Sukuna would take complete control of his body once this was done. When Jogo agreed with his plan, Geto revealed that they would attack Yuji's jujitsu school to steal the rest of the fingers, and would forcefully shove them into his mouth. Meanwhile, Yuji hurried into the lounge, excited that he would be rejoining his friends, but Gojo suggested that he shows up in a surprise package, saying that his appearance would blow everyone away. At the same time, Fushiguro and the others were set for the contest. But as the opposing school arrived, Mai began calling them a team of losers. Just then, their instructor appeared, wondering if they were ready to destroy each other at the contest. But Gojo arrived at that moment, and started giving away ugly dolls to the opponents. He told them that it was a souvenir from his trip. But just as he was done, Yuji revealed himself to the group. When he began thinking that everyone would be excited, he discovered that Fushiguro and Kyujisaki were creeped out instead, and even their opponents were occupied with the souvenir. But a few hours later, after the competition rules were announced, Yuji decided to apologize for staying away from his friends, and revealed that it was the only way to protect himself from the higher-ups. At the same time, Yoshinudo, a disgusting old principal, began telling his students to eliminate Yuji once the contest begins, and said that killing him would be easier than blowing his mom's back out. Right then, Todo kicked the door away, saying that he would not join in the attack. When Noritoshi tried commanding him to return, Todo told him to kiss his ass and threatened to beat up Yoshinudo for being a weak, ugly old man who could only plot cheap schemes. He said that he was no coward and told the rest of the group to rot in hell. After he left, the girls began wondering if they could eliminate Yuji on their own. So Noritoshi began saying that Yuji was nothing but a weakling that never deserved to be in their school in the first place. On the other hand, Yuji and his team were ready for the contest. So as they began heading out, Yuji was glad that he would finally prove himself. The game was about to begin, and with both teams on the line, Gojo announced the start of the festival, causing all of them to begin running towards one another. Their challenge was to eliminate the highest level monsters before their time ran out. So when Yuji wondered how they would find the boss, Panda told him that it was hiding somewhere in the middle of the forest. Just then, they spotted a cursed monster before them, and Panda thought it was a weak monster that would be easily killed. However, before they could eliminate it, the blast from Toto's punch blew it away. As he realized that the entire team had arrived, Toto told them to attack him at the same time. But Yuji rushed and rammed his knee into his useless face, allowing the others to run away. At the same time, Toto managed to withdraw from Yuji, but Yuji wondered how he managed to stay on his feet. Just then, Toto prepared himself for battle, and told Yuji that he would crush every bone inside his worthless body. In an instant, he charged his fist while rushing forward. But as a cursed monster appeared before him, his punch went through the monster, punching Yuji all the way back into a tree. While Yuji was still in shock, he wondered how his arms managed to remain attached to his body. Just then, Toto began curb stomping his disgusting face and continued bashing him until he eventually passed out. He wondered if Yuji was just a weak loser after all, and began wondering who he should attack next. However, Yuji managed to wake up and said that pounding his head might have made him dumber than he already was, but Toto told him not to worry about it. After all, there was only one thing that mattered to Toto, and he decided to ask him what his taste in women was. So as Yuji told him that he loves a tall girl with massive nuclear missiles, Toto thought that Yuji was just like him, and realized that he was the person that's been missing in his life. He was the friend who would have shared his plot-filled magazines, and even when he gets rejected by his favorite idol, he would now have Yuji to help him get through his depression. This was everything Toto wanted to hear, and told him that they were now best friends. But Yuji wondered